בית אבותם במספר שמות מבין 20.
There's always going to be a story. There's always going to be a story. The history of the Jews in the American Revolution is not one a lot of people know. The story of America and the Jewish people are linked together inextricably.
In September 1654, 6 families of Portuguese Jews from Recife, Brazil, arrived in New Amsterdam, modern-day New York City. More would arrive in the next 100 years. By late into the 18th century, the Jewish population was only 0.01% of the colonial population, around 2,500 individuals. However, when it came to winning American independence from the British, many would give their finances and their lives. When war broke out in April of 1775, the oldest congregation in the United States, Cherith Israel in New York City, founded by Sephardic Jews in 1654, had to close down for fear of the British.
But Mikveh Israel stood strong, and we did not have that impediment to have us close down and discontinue. And to the contrary, when the war started to become more severe, we had a number of our members who not only stood up to their calling to fund the revolution. I'm referring to figures such as the great Chaim Solomon, who was arguably the largest philanthropist, the greatest financier of Washington's Army and Navy. But we also had members who fought in the war, who served in Washington's Army to fight for the cause of liberty.
Rabbi Yosef Zarnigian of Mikveh Israel in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Known as the Synagogue of the American Revolution, Mikveh Israel is the oldest continuous synagogue in the United States. One of its founders, Chaim Solomon, a Polish Jew who immigrated to the colonies in the 1770s, is largely responsible for financing George Washington's army during the Revolution. A well-known exchange broker, the Continental Congress named him treasurer of the army.
From what we know about Chaim Solomon's life, the cause of his financial support was twofold. On one level, it was personal. He had many dealings with the British that had him imprisoned by them a number of times. And it was also a cause of principle. In principle, he felt that the American cause not only aligned with his values as a Jew, but also aligned with what would be best for the future of this nation. The values that the United States would ultimately adopt and ratify into the Constitution, into the Bill of Rights. I believe Chaim Solomon saw those values to be the most firm, the most just, and the most prosperous values by which to found a nation.
On October 19, 1781, British General Charles Cornwallis surrendered his army of some 8,000 men to General George Washington at Yorktown, Virginia. Chaim Solomon is credited to financing that final battle. He was never repaid by the American government and died penniless at 44 years old. He, along with many other congregants of Mikveh Israel who gave their lives and finances for the cause of freedom, are buried in the Spruce Street Cemetery in Philadelphia. The South had its patriots as well.
One of the things that I thought was very interesting was in Charleston, which was one of the centers of Jewish life, you have so many Jewish men enlisting that they actually called it the Jewish Regiment, which I thought that was really interesting because you don't see that in other American conflicts.
23-year-old Zeev Carmi, working on his master's at the University of West Virginia, is published on the subject. To bigotry, no sanction. To persecution, no assistance. Jews in the American Revolutionary period.
A lot of them are motivated by economic pragmatism rather than ideological, these high-minded equality, liberty, justice. These are really high-minded abstract ideals. A lot of them are much more concerned with your everyday things that you and I would be worried about. Can I grow my business? Will the high British taxation hurt my business? That's why a lot of these Jewish merchants support the Patriots. And conversely, you've got a lot of the loyalists who say, I've been having it pretty good with these British. They're a lot better than most other European powers. Why rock the boat? And it's just like any other group that they're trying to just do what they think is right in a difficult time.
However, the Jews who sided with the Patriots are remembered in memorial. In downtown Charleston, South Carolina, a diorama honors a man called the Paul Revere of the South. His name, Francis Salvador.
Salvador is an interesting figure because he's actually an open Jew elected to the Carolina legislature. He gives that up, he goes to serve, and he dies.
Salvador was the first Jew elected to public office in the colonies and to die for American independence. There were others.
You learn history a la carte. So you learn history as it crosses your desk.
That's how Nathan Rabe, antiquities expert, author, and president of the Rabe Collection, learned of another Jewish patriot. Rabe was contacted a few years ago about an artifact that spoke of a Jewish merchant from Charleston and a reverend from the north.
What survived from that time were 2 pages from a diary.
While trying to escape from a British prison ship, Reverend Moses Allen drowned, and his diary was retrieved from his pocket. His descendants passed it on for generations.
And they described a unique and powerful friendship. And that friendship was with a Jew who had also been active during the American Revolution, a man named Mordechai Sheftel, and described the shared experience they had on board this prison ship.
At the time, Mordechai Sheftel was the highest-ranking Jewish officer of the colonial forces.
What you see in the pages of the diary is that the British captors used the Judaism of Mordechai Sheftel and his son, who were prisoner on board this ship. They were observant Jews in early America fighting for the revolutionary cause. So when they offered them the pork and the Jews declined, Mordechai Sheftel and his son declined, they smeared their utensils with pork grease to intentionally torture them and highlight the fact, separate them because they were Jewish and because they were keeping kosher. Reverend Allen described the courage and fortitude of these Jewish captives. Moses Allen wrote of the great respect that he wished he was able to live up to the grace that they showed.
Colonel Sheftel also gave vast amounts of money to the war effort, like many others. Isaac Moses, Aaron Lopez, Michael Gratz, and Joseph Simon. They were never repaid, and most, being merchants, lost ships and goods to the British. The Jewish people, like many immigrants who fought for American freedom, are part of a great melting pot of nations that make up today's 50 states.
On the one hand, the Jewish people realize that we are a nation in exile. We don't forget that. But by the same token, we are not just aliens. We're not entirely foreigners. We're also residents.
I was born in this country. I love this country. I plan to stay in this country. I plan to die in this country. But I'm Jewish first and foremost. And that's the way the Jewish people have been for 2,000 years.